Banshees, headless horsemen, goblins, fairies, phantom dogs, fearsome black cats, ladies gliding down long staircases, former customers and tenants returning to get back what they believe is rightfully theirs, flashes of light traveling through the night, shadowy figures moving slowly through the long, dark corridors of old houses, strange death warnings, sounds in the dark and secret recesses of castles which are found in this ancient land. These are but some of the unexplained experiences which have formed an integral part of Ireland's history, perhaps best known through the art form of storytelling. But do these figures continue to live amongst us, to be seen by few and spoken about only in local settings across the country? Or has human progress, the invention of electricity and the roar of the Celtic tiger, scattered these spirits and terrors of the dark from this island? Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, I would believe in ghosts.
No, I don't believe in ghosts.
No, I don't believe in ghosts.
No, I don't.
I don't believe in ghosts, no.
No, I don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe in ghosts.
No, but don't put me into a haunted house. I wouldn't like it.
These are the responses we received when we started to explore the haunted houses and mines of Ireland. To investigate further, we decided to look back to the origin of these stories, exchanged at the fireside, and to their development through time to see what exactly had led to this change in this once popular Irish tradition.
Ghost stories are very popular in Ireland and have been down through the centuries. And the question of their origin probably goes back to the Celtic peoples from whom the vast majority of the Irish feel that they are descended.
When people had no control over nature, thunder, lightning, and things like this, they were fearful. And so they started doing rituals and trying to appease nature.
Well, Ireland, of course, was full of gods and goddesses. These were the ancient divinities of the people, what we call the pantheon. Very often in Christianity, for instance, we have a feeling that God is very remote. Now, this wasn't true, really, of the Celtic gods and goddesses. They were very near, and they lived in the other world, different type of existence altogether, but nevertheless, they were always, as it were, in and out of this country, and among ordinary people. Now, these weren't ghosts in the kind of sense of dead people. They were great, shining, majestic gods.
So the Celts had a strong belief in the supernatural. But what were these otherworldly creatures like? Is there a famous one?
One of the stories, the type of stories that we're most familiar with, is the story of the Banshee. And nearly everybody knows about the Banshee, that when certain people die, or before they die, the relatives can hear a woman wailing, or queening, as they say, doing the queener, the lament for the dead, a very high-pitched shriek in the dead of night. Now, this is a very, very ancient tradition, in a sense older than the common ghost story that we're familiar with, because this seems to go back to the very beginning of the Celtic people.
There are 6 explanations given on the Banshee according to my research. The Banshee was a devil who would come back to cry when a soul had been lost and he hadn't got the soul, was one. A dying person's guardian angel giving him warning of the death by crying. A child who died unbaptized and couldn't find a resting place. The ghost of a woman who had suffered violence in family and haunted the family afterwards. A soul done their purgatory on earth. And the 6th one was the queening woman.
How is this strong belief in the communication with the gods incorporated into everyday life?
The people, the ordinary humans, they were expected to show their gratitude to the gods and goddesses by making little offerings. And you have, for instance, what are called pishogues. Originally, this was an offering made to the god. A little pit was built on it, was dug in the ground, and people threw in eggs and butter and piece of meat and so on. This is generally regarded nowadays, pishogues, as it's now regarded as being very evil. But because it does mean that the local farmer, your neighbour, has something against you.
We talk about the widow's curse and we talk about the priest's curse. They would have come out of a time when we were under landlordism and when there was no way of getting, I suppose, compensation for being evicted or getting recess in the courts. So people went down their knees and they cursed. Now, we assumed that, and the cursing was very serious business. You called on their seed-breeding generation to be destroyed. People baked a cake of bread, and as they baked the bread, they cursed the bread. And they cursed the family they wanted to put the bread on. And then they got the bread into your house and put it into the heart of the fire before the fire was lit.
And this is supposed to bring about bad luck, failure of your crops and so on.
So there were no ghosts among the Celts, but gods. They were admired and dreaded at the same time, and not only did the Celts try to gain their goodwill, but also to inflict the gods' anger upon their enemies. But when did the Gothic ghost stories appear in Ireland? And what did they share with the superstitions of the early history?
In modern times, the ghost story is still very popular, but it was especially popular in the 19th, 18th centuries, when you had the tradition of what was called scoriocht. Now, scoriocht was a very simple custom. People gathered at night at a certain house around the fire and they told stories. And very often there was a travelling shanachie or storyteller. He was a professional really, and he told stories and the rest listened. And perhaps many people in the house told their own story, so that the night was filled with storytelling.
And the bigger the story and the bigger the ghost, the better the entertainment.
One such story can be found in the town of Cahir in County Tipperary. Black Tom's pub is the focal point of the town's local ghost legend, which is still sometimes spoken about today.
The story around Black Tom's is meant to go that Black Tom himself had a grocery store there at one stage, and that the local people or whatever bought their groceries or got them on credit, which was very popular in those days.
The O'Malley shop every week at Black Tom's grocery shop. This year has been a bad year for their farm, and they are worried about how they will afford to get through the winter. But they are lucky in that the local shopkeeper, Black Tom, generously helps them and other poor families. He lets them pay on credit. Buy now and pay later is his recipe for success.
If they weren't able to pay then, Black Tom seemingly picked up their land or their property or got them to sign it over to them, or so the story goes.
But the year does not go well for the O'Malleys, and they are unable to pay Black Tom's bill. As their debts mount, Black Tom, the generous shopkeeper, begins to take their land bit by bit. They are forced to hand over their farm and leave their home, facing a life of misery.
With that, then, the people are meant to be coming back looking for their property.
Nowadays, strange things still happen in Black Tom's pub. Whenever staff members stay overnight between shifts, they can hear unexplained noises in the dark. Windows rattle, floorboards creak, and objects constantly fall from their shelves. But why have such great stories diminished? How and why have they changed?
A change then kind of is discernible to some extent in the stories. There, at a later period, it seems to me anyway, that the dead came into it more. And instead of the gods and goddesses coming back, it was the dead who came back.
Television has and video has got rid of a lot of this. People no longer go and visit each other in houses. Now, there's always a search among young people for the paranormal or outside the main senses. Hence the interest in, for example, in Ouija boards and in witchcraft on television.
Comparing those stories now to sort of stories which you see in the television, they've lost something.
People continue to remain unsure as to whether ghosts exist.
I believe in ghosts up to a certain point.
I used to be terrified. I couldn't pass a graveyard without blessing myself 3 or 4 times.
In a way, yes. I believe there are some certain spirits around that influence.
I had a strange gentleman in my caravan that night, all dressed in his army outfit. Very difficult, very frightening.
I'm not sure. I'm between two minds. You know, sometimes I think they're there, and sometimes I think they're not. It's an enormous question, and as far as I know, nobody really knows the answer.
Banshees, headless horsemen, fairies, flashes of light, and shadowy figures moving through the night. These are the ghostly experiences which formed an integral part of Ireland's culture. But these stories have failed to be passed on to the younger generations. The coming of electricity has taken people from the fireside, the hearth of these ghost stories. But even though they appear to have vanished, they may still be among us, watching us, and may even be sitting next to us.